Greetings and salutations, everyone. 'Tis I, your host, GodOfKnockers, and today I want to talk about debunking myths around anti-cheats. And there's quite a number of them. There's some big ones that are constantly, to this very day, still around being a dick. And it's really pissing off and freaking out people, especially those who are not tech savvy. Before we get started in this video, there is going to be a mention of piracy. But I want to make it clear, I do not support piracy. I don't want you pirating your games or any type of softwares for that matter. If you can find a way to get it for cheap, or if you can find free versions, go ahead and do that. I do not support piracy. This will not tell you how to do piracy. This has nothing to do with piracy. So if you're watching this video thinking, yeah, I can get free shit, I regret to inform you, this ain't it. Sorry. Not sorry. And on the subject of this whole discussion with anti-cheats, I'd like to make it very clear to those who really may not like me or just don't like the things that I do, say, or think, this video is about anti-cheats only. It is not about any game in specific or any game in particular. While I will mention some games in particular to help prove a point and to help tell a narrative about what's going on and the backstory of things, I am not talking about any game in particular. So if you, this individual, and I'm pretty sure you know who it is, decides to jump up and say, hey yo, they're talking about this game, please shut the fuck up. I get it. You have issues with one game in particular, you don't like the people who make it, you don't like the game itself. Make your own fucking content instead of trying this ad hominem bullshit. I'm going in one direction and you're trying to use that as a stepping stone to take the conversation into another direction. Nobody wants that shit. If there's a game that you do not like, make your own fucking video with your own fucking content and your own fucking views and opinions. Stop using my videos as a stepping stone. Thank you. With that said, let's get down to the business. The first misconception of anti-cheats is, you're not going to believe this one, that Denuvo is out to wreck your shit. It's really not. Denuvo's anti-cheat has been around in many different variations and forms for years, decades even. It's industry standard. That's not a joke. As a matter of fact, the company that made Denuvo is the same company that purchased Digital Works, the makers of SecureROM. And SecureROM sucked platypus shit. Oh yeah, that thing stank. It's terrible. Oof, God. Just thinking about it's making my head hurt. And I seldom get headaches these days. Anywho, Denuvo's anti-cheat and anti-tamper systems have gotten a severely nasty reputation because of one particular game that was online that suffered a terrible update, and people blame Denuvo for it. That game in question? Doom Eternal. No, I'm not joking. Doom Eternal. And around the time that Doom Eternal was released, two things were happening. One, you had a lot of people who were reserving and buying copies of Doom Eternal on virtually any platform that it was on, including PC. And two, you had a whole bunch of motherfuckers who were trying to pirate the game because they couldn't afford to get it. So there was a lot going on with Doom Eternal. It was one of the best ones out there up until Doom the Dark Ages, which I can't play it myself personally because I don't have the hardware for it, but I've seen others play it. Oh my god. The game looks amazing. Fuck. Anybody got a 3080 minimum out there? Anything RTX? Huh? No? No? Okay, never mind. But anyway, I digress. The whole thing with Denuvo started with the game Doom Eternal, and people were upset because of an anti-tamper feature. Now, for a while, people were like, oh, Denuvo anti-tamper? Okay, great, that's fine. But there were some people who were like, no, it's spying on you, it's watching you, it's malware, it's spyware, it's doing all these terrible things and stuff. And people were like, I don't know, I want to play it, I don't give a fuck. So then, a couple of things happened. Shortly after its release, there was an update for it called the 6.66 update, ironically, and this said update sucked ass. Now, at the time this update was released for Doom Eternal, it was supposed to add a plethora of new features and a whole bunch of fixes and a whole bunch of stuff. And at the same time, Denuvo's anti-tamper was still in play. They hadn't removed it, it was there the whole fucking time, right? So when this update drops for the game, people noticed that they couldn't play it. There was times where the audio would stutter, where the game would freeze and pause, and the whole thing looked like it would just slow down to a crawl. And these were high-end people that had high-end computers. This wasn't like something like, oh, okay, we got the... No, these were high-end machines. And even on those, there was stuttering and ultimately crashes. At the same time, in the pirate community, there was a bunch of people who downloaded a janky copy of Doom Eternal. And when I say jank, this is where it kind of gets a little fishy. When I say jank, I mean as in a clean pirated copy that was loaded with a whole bunch of shit via a custom installer. Let me explain. As the Nouveau anti-tamper was starting to ramp up and trying to stop gamers from pirating games and such, you had a very popular group, I forget the name of the group, that would come in and be like, yes, we've cracked the anti-tamper. And they would actually go and upload the anti-tamper free version to the Nouveau free version of the game in question, of Doom Eternal. And people were like, yes, I can play this now, and I don't have to worry about the anti-tamper. I can install it wherever I fucking want. Let's go. But then you also had another group, and this group was just a bunch of malicious motherfuckers. This particular group would take the pirated copy, the clean pirated copy, I know that's an oxymoron, and they would make their version. The game itself was not untouched. It didn't have the anti-tamper anymore. The anti-tamper was removed. But what they did was they made a custom installer that not only legitimately installed the pirated copy, but it also installed crypto miners. And in their instructions, they were told to start a batch file that would be showing up on your desktop instead of going into the game itself and starting it there. So when you ran that batch file, what would happen is, one, the crypto miner that they installed on your machine would start to run, and then they would start the game. What the problem was is that these guys got really greedy. They didn't configure the crypto miner properly. A crypto miner can only run when there's no processes. In this particular case, they set it up so the miner runs regardless of what's running in the background. It's not waiting for anything to be idle. It's not waiting for anything to shut down. It's like, hey, you run as this game is running, and you're going to use max power on everything. And it's like, okay, boss, let's do this. So what happened was, with this pirated janky copy, was that you had people who were running the game, and at the same time, the game had the 666 update built into it. So this was just unfortunate circumstance. And then you had the crypto miner running alongside of it. Games require utilization from the GPU, not the CPU, the GPU. But crypto miners, if the GPU is not available, they will use the CPU instead as a backup. The GPUs are faster at making those calculations in crypto than any CPU ever will be. So the end result, 100% on the CPU, 100% use on the GPU. And because the CPU handles other functions that the game doesn't need to handle, and the GPU is just doing its own thing, you have an overworked system. So now the GPU is running at full tilt from whatever is left over from the crypto miner. The crypto miner is using 100% of the CPU, and all of this is getting pumped up and loaded into RAM. When you have a crypto miner that is running at 100% speed, anything and everything that is your operating system slows down to a crawl and can even freeze. And the fact that nobody could shut down the system properly, it means that that crypto miner, no matter what the circumstances, was going to continue to keep on running until it either got a command to say stop running, which you couldn't do, or someone turned their computer completely off, which in turn messed up their operating system, which in turn caused the game to crash, and just a complete clusterfuck. And the problem is that the people that downloaded this copy of Doom Eternal with the crypto miner were not tech savvy. They were not aware of the dangers of piracy. And yeah, there are some. There's quite a number. You can easily install malware and viruses on your computer and get infected very quickly. You can have somebody doing injections or running spyware and malware, and there you go. It's easy to do it that way. What they didn't do was look into that or learn anything else about it. So they figured it must be something else that's causing it. Then they go and they look to the forums, and everybody at the Bethesda forums is talking about how the 666 update is not working right. And then you have people who are not tech savvy there, who are saying that ever since I got this update, things have been crashing. But they instead blame the one thing that they don't like. The people who were pirating the game and the people who purchased it legitimately had one thing in common. They were very skeptical of the Nouveau. So what happened? They blamed the Nouveau. And it went like that for a very, very, very long time. Even I felt for it. I was like, God damn. It's just, why would you install such a thing on there? I said to myself, what are you doing, Bethesda? What? How did we get this way? What are you talking about? I've been wanting to play this game for the longest of time and it looks so cool, but how is it that some people don't have a problem, but now everybody has a problem with this update? What? Yeah, it was really easy to fall for this shit because nobody wanted to get their shit wrecked. Computers are very expensive, so you don't want to do or say something that can fuck them up. I don't know why I said say something. But anyway, the bottom line is that in the end, there was a revision update. A new 6.66 revision 2 patch dropped, which fixed everything that the first revision messed up, and at that same time, they got rid of Denuvo's anti-cheat, or anti-tamper in this case. And as soon as that happened, everyone was like, aha! Gotcha! It was Denuvo. Well, that explains it. No, it wasn't. Denuvo's anti-tamper had only one goal. It was to make it harder for people to pirate the game. If the game was too hard to pirate, it won't get pirated. This allows for legitimate copies to be sold. So instead of being like, I'm going to pirate this game, oh wait, it's not available, I can't pirate it? Well, I guess I'm just going to have to save up and buy a copy. And that's exactly what people did. So the whole time this fiasco was going on, you still had people buying the game. This is the thing that Denuvo's anti-tamper does. It was to make it harder for people to pirate the game, which would then encourage people to buy legitimate copies so they could play the game. After a while, once those margins get met up, once it's like, hey, we made our sales, we got back the money that we put into the game, and we made a profit, there's no need to keep it around, so let's get rid of it. Even though there was an issue with the PC version, the console versions were working just fine, because they didn't have the anti-tamper attached to them. So Bethesda still ultimately made its money. They made their bank no matter what. And then when they finally put out that update, they were like, the update's good, we don't need to keep the anti-tamper, so let's just remove it. Even Bethesda said the problem was not the anti-tamper, we just put out a shitty update. But nobody paid attention to that. They were all focused on Denuvo. Cheaters were also focused on Denuvo. The cheaters just ran with it because they don't want this stuff in there at all, because they want to go back to doing what they do best, cheating games. And if you got an anti-cheat that's stopping you from doing that, well, you're not in for a good time, because they're like, I want to cheat, motherfucker. And that's where all that came from. Denuvo's anti-cheat is not dangerous. Denuvo's anti-tamper is not dangerous. It's not going to hack your shit. It's not spying on you. Which brings me to the second concept of anti-cheats, and this is speaking to all of them. Anti-cheats are not malware, and they are not spyware. I know that we don't want to install malicious softwares or programs that could be monitoring anything, but the truth of the matter is, in Windows alone, you already have programs that are monitoring your system. You ever heard of Task Manager? Task Manager monitors your hardware all the time. It monitors GPU usage, your CPU usage. It looks at the processes that are loaded. All that stuff that you see is being monitored. So you already have a monitoring system. It's a prime example of how monitoring systems work in Windows. They're not designed to identify you or to grab any of your personal information. They're designed to say, here's what's going on with your computer right now. This is what I'm currently seeing. This is what's currently happening. This is how much RAM you're using. This is how much hard drive activity is going on. This is how much your CPU is doing. This is how much power is going on, and so on and so forth. MSI Afterburner, that has it. CPU-Z, Cupid, that's a monitoring tool as well. Monitoring tools are not malware or spyware. Another thing that I like to point out, malware and spyware programs do not announce that they are on your system. The whole point of malware and spyware is that they are to operate secretly, behind the scenes, without you being any of the wiser that something is going on until it's too late. Easy Anti-Cheat, Denuvo, Ricochet, Vanguard, all the other anti-cheats that I can't even mention because there's been quite a number of them, do not work secretly. They know when you're powering it on. Have you ever played Fortnite? You know that little window that pops up? The little box that says starting battle eye? Yeah, that's it. Also, when you start up the loading screen, you'll see that it says easy anti-cheat in the banner. Anti-cheats do not and are not malicious by design in any way, shape, or form. They're really not. And malware and software does not announce that it's on your system. It does so secretly. It's like, oh, yes, we're on the system. Okay, here's what we're doing in the background. They don't make themselves known. They don't make themselves visible. If anything, the creators of these software packages do everything that they possibly can so you can't detect them, so you don't know when they are online. That's the whole point. That's the whole point to malware and spyware. Anti-cheats are always on when the game is on. They're not running in the background. They're not doing anything malicious. They're not doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing. They were designed that way. Denuvo was designed only to run when a game that uses Denuvo calls for that feature to run. Any game that uses Easy Anti-Cheat, it also does the same thing. Any game that uses NProtect, same thing. Any game, Vanguard is the same way. If you're playing, wow, I just forgot the name that fast. But anyway, if you're playing any of Riot's games, they require the Vanguard anti-cheat be available. If the anti-cheat is not on or running, or if you turned it off, you can't play, and you got to restart the machine so it loads into the kernel properly. You have the option to unload it. All this other shit is just ridiculous. It's just dumb. Okay? Anti-cheats are not malware or spyware. They are monitoring memory. They don't change anything. They don't write anything. They're not designed to spy on you and identify you as a person. They're really not. They're not designed that way. But there are sadly people who say, yeah, they kind of are, and I don't want to play a game that has them. Is there any way to remove them? Is there any way to undo them? Can we take those off? Can we do that? Come on. There's got to be a way that I can play this game without the anti-cheat. Oh, I can't play it? Okay, fine. I will never play this game. I'm going to put it on a list to make sure nobody else plays it. And all the while, you're missing out on a perfectly good game that you could be playing right now because fear and paranoia and misinformation are ruling the roost in your mind. And because you don't have enough tech savvy to just look into it and see that it's perfectly fine. I've been playing a lot of games that have anti-cheats in them. I've never had an issue. I'm going to say that till the cows come home, because you should be listening to people who actually play these games and actually have these anti-cheats, instead of some bullshit post on Reddit or some random yahoo that you don't even know. Alright? I'm an IT technician. This is my thing. It's what I do. Lying to you about how shit works is not in my agenda. It's not part of my itinerary. It is important that you guys know how computers work and every aspect they're in. I can't give you everything. I can't give you all the knowledge because, there's no one knows everything. I'm not a know-it-all. Again, to that one guy, kiss my ass, dude. Yeah, I see you over there. What? Look away. But if what I know it well, and I am more than happy and willing to share it with you. You don't have to charge me or pay me anything. I will give you the information. Because you guys need that. In this day and age, we need facts and we need proper information, and that's what this video is for. With all that said, I now move on to the next misconception about anti-cheats. The anti-cheats are slowing down my machine to the point where I'm losing frames. There are anti-cheats that do in fact have an impact on game performance. However, that performance is minimal at best. Like, you might maybe lose half of a frame or a quarter of a frame. It's so small and insignificant that you can't really tell. You don't even really notice it. Again, I have played a whole bunch of games with a whole bunch of anti-cheats in them. From NProtect, the Ricochet, Vanguard, all of it. I've played all of them, right? These games have had anti-cheats up the ass, and I've played each and every one of them, including Marvel Rivals. I have never once had any type of performance issue based on those anti-cheats. You know where I've had the actual issues from? Improper settings for my game. Like with Marvel Rivals, the default, and because I use the NVIDIA app, the default is highest possible quality. So we're talking 4K resolution. We're talking full maxed out on all the settings. Everything is at very high settings, or ultra. We're talking ultra settings on a machine that's like, yes, I could run it like this, but I don't want to because holy shit. Slow the fuck down. We don't need to utilize every little bit of RAM up in here. Let's dial it back here. Let's dial this the fuck back. That's what I'm dealing with. And every single game that I've ever installed and has ever been configured by the NVIDIA app always turns the settings up to ultra, which can impact performance, which can slow things down, especially if you have a system that either barely meets the requirements or actually does meet it, but again, over the fucking kill, man. Holy shit. Slow down, relax, mellow the fuck out. If you have a game that has an anti-cheat in it and you notice that your frames are dropping, do not blame the anti-cheat. Again, the only thing an anti-cheat is responsible for is detecting cheaters. That's it. If you are having issues playing a game, check to see if you meet the minimum system requirements at least. If you meet the minimum system requirements, or if you meet the maximum system requirements, which there are people who do, then that means that you need to adjust your settings in the game. And you can do that very easily. Just lower your settings. You don't need to have your settings at super ultra 4K. Maybe that might be causing an issue. Maybe there's a setting in your graphics card that you need to configure. You need to tweak your settings instead of just running the game out of the box. We all do it. I've been guilty of doing it. It happens. But do not automatically assume that something that is designed to prevent cheating is the reason why your shit is not working properly. The next misconception about anti-cheats as well as anti-tamper systems is that these are fairly new and that they are, just something that has just been made janky and all this other shit. Anti-cheat and anti-tamper systems have been around for decades. When Zork came out, Return to Zork in the 1980s came out, it had an anti-tamper system. It was crude and terrible, but it was a system nonetheless. What you had was those little booklets, and each booklet would have like a little code or something on it, and then you'd have like the little something in the program that would say, hey, turn to this page, look at this paragraph, come down here, what's the word from the fifth row from the left or whatever, and you would type that word in, and it would be like, okay, we can start. If you didn't put in the right word, or if you messed it up 3 times, you couldn't play the game, and the game just shut down. It was terrible. That was a terrible system. The next point of anti-tamper was where you had to either have the disk installed or inserted, or you had to have a key or something that you had to use every single time. And if you didn't have the disk, or if you lost the disk, you couldn't play the game anymore. Those were terrible. There were a lot of anti-tamper systems that have evolved and changed over the decades. This is not something new that we just came up with. This is a new way of doing it. But anti-tamper systems and anti-cheat systems have been around in several iterations. We've had physical, we've had technical, we've had software-based, we've had hardware-based. They've been around. This is not something new. It's not something that was just suddenly invented because some guy was like, hey, can we do this? No. It's been around for the longest of time. And there are people who know exactly what the fuck they're doing with these anti-tamper systems. Although there have been some that have been poorly designed, in the end, they kind of worked a little too well because you couldn't really play the thing you wanted to play. But ultimately, this is not something new. They've been around as long as you have, if not longer. This in turn brings me to the next thing about why people hate on anti-cheats. They are worried that sooner or later, there's going to be a piece of sophisticated technology that's going to make anti-cheats be virtually useless. That they're going to be like, okay, someone's going to make tools that are going to be that great, and then it's going to be like, yeah, we're going to do this, and then it's going to be like, yeah, we're going to do that, and it's going to hold up all this stuff, and these tools are going to be able to bypass all the security, and it's going to be able to manipulate the kernel drivers in such a way that they can easily slip past Microsoft, and then all these changes and stuff would be like, yeah, let's go. It's not a security nightmare. It really isn't. What a lot of people don't realize is that when it comes to anti-cheat and anti-tamper systems, that Microsoft, which is where most of these games are made because they're made for Windows, it requires all such drivers to be signed by them. There's a system that's in place there where Microsoft does it. Back in the old days, like in Windows 7 and Windows 8 and even Windows XP, you could use any certificate authority to create and generate a certified system. And to create a certified, what is it? Hang on, it's coming to me. A certified certificate that says, hey, yes, we have the certificate, it verifies that this is a thing, go right ahead. And that software still exists to this day, but it's mainly for older systems, not the new ones. If you're on Windows 10 and Windows 11, the system that's in place to vet these drivers, you have no issue. If you have software from Windows 7 and 8 and so on and so forth, it's really just a fancy way of saying, will you please update your software? Some software that's designed for Windows 7 really won't run well in 10 unless you find some kind of emulation or do some really tricky stuff with it where it kind of has to run in a virtual machine or something, like VirtualBox or Windows Sandbox, for example, one of the two. But most of those softwares do not run because they have unsigned drivers and you can't really use them anyway. This is a clear indication that you need to update your equipment and software and hardware, because the old stuff just won't run in Windows 10 and 11. A lot of people are like, well, you could easily just take that software and you can make a tool for it and then bypass it, and then you can go ahead and hit the drivers, and then the drivers themselves can then suddenly be like, okay, now we have access to your entire system, and they can do some serious shit and damage. Like I said before, and I will say it again, no system is 100% secure, and the chain is as strong as its weakest link. I get it. Okay? We all get it. But I want to make something abundantly clear. This particular system that is in place makes it hard to do that. Let's really think about it. Every anti-cheat requires that they be signed by Microsoft. That means that Microsoft has to look at the code. That means that they have to inspect the code. That means they have to make sure that this driver is up to par. You know how Linus Torvalds has to look at any changes and approve those changes to the Linux kernel before he releases them? Well, same system, except there's a lot more people looking at it. So whenever a driver is made, the driver has to be made with the intentions of why it's being made. Like, hey, it's a simple anti-cheat. It only monitors on certain systems that are running that also require this service. It does not run outside of that. There are no other calls that can be made to it, and so on and so forth. So because there's no other calls that can be made to it, and because of that vetting process, they're like, okay, we need to look at the code and we need to make sure that it works properly. This is an actual thing that they do. Okay, when you have kernel level drivers, they don't want that shit getting in the way. They don't want to be like, okay, let's go ahead and put this driver in. We're not going to vet it. That doesn't happen anymore. They are very, very adamant about making sure that every driver that is made has to be digitally signed by Microsoft. That digital signature verifies that that particular driver is perfectly safe for their system and is totally fine to utilize in the kernel. Absolutely fine. Which means that that particular driver is made in such a way that it only has access to certain features, but at the same time doesn't mess with the Windows kernel. So the notion of, okay, you're going to take this, we're going to have this do this thing, and then it's going to go ahead and do that thing, and then it's going to go ahead and do this thing, which will then affect the kernel driver that I'm very questionable about. And the kernel driver is going to do some things to the Windows kernel, and so on and so. It's not that simple. The Windows kernel is not just one big giant file that sits in memory. No, it's a series of modules, and all these modules have what's known as privileges and request settings. These modules simply return functions and values. It's like you have to enter a certain value to do a certain thing in a specific way at a specific time. It's the Windows kernel that allows you to access hardware components and talk to your hardware from a software perspective. That's what bridges that gap. That's all it is. And a lot of people fear that because you can access it from this level, that there's a chance that people can do some nefarious stuff, that they can get a driver in there, have access to the kernel in there, and do all this other shit. Again, not saying that it is possible, that's not possible that it could happen, but what I am saying is it's very difficult, because in order for that to happen, you have to have, one, a driver that Microsoft not only vets as perfectly safe, but also is able to do all these nefarious things while looking legit. That's really hard to do because, again, that code is going to be vetted. And if they find that there's a problem with it, it's like, hey, this code is doing things that you said that it wasn't going to do. Like, you said it was designed for this particular thing, but we're looking at the code and it's like you're doing this thing instead. We're not going to let that slide. So either fix this or no, and it's not going to be approved. Every driver has to be vetted. That's something that Microsoft has, and once it is vetted, it is signed by Microsoft. There has only been one time where that didn't happen. Just one, and that one time was actually by accident. There was a hacker group that tried to come up with a driver for a really old piece of hardware that not a lot of people had, and it did in fact do nefarious things. And Microsoft accidentally approved the driver and accidentally gave it a code. That driver got loaded into Windows computers, but it didn't do anything because it required a specific piece of hardware to be installed on your computer. not a lot of people had this software, had this hardware. So because not a lot of people had this hardware device, the driver couldn't do anything. You have to directly call it in order for it to work. It didn't do anything. The module couldn't use any of its functions or have its functions utilized because the devices in question were not installed. And it was an old piece of hardware anyways. So because not many people had it, there was no indication of something bad happening. There was nothing. So it was totally useless. Microsoft corrected the error. They rejected the driver. They rescinded the approval for it, and that was it. No harm, no foul. Nobody had any issues. The only way this can fail is if Microsoft signs onto something on a security thing, they don't vet it, and then it's allowed to do whatever it wants. Anti-cheats are designed to only respond to games that request the functions of the modules in the kernel. Those modules are not going to have full reign to the entire Windows kernel because that's not what they're for. They don't need the Windows kernel. They're monitoring. They can't make changes to the OS. They cannot make changes to anything. They're just monitoring your system. That's all they're doing. There are people who are under the impression that because it's in the Windows kernel, that it's like, okay, it's in the kernel, this happened. I remember seeing this in a movie once, Hackers, which, by the way, not accurate at all. It's a movie. Work of fiction. It's just there for show and for drama and for effect. There was nothing accurate about any of that shit. Same thing goes with Swordfish or any computer program or any movie involving computers. It's just, no. There's some stuff that's factual, but everything else, no, not as much. Not as much, but people will stick to that and they'll cling on to it like cancer to a prostate. That's not how it works, Susan. No, please don't. When it comes to Windows kernels and it comes to kernel drivers, I understand and I totally get that there is a fear. You are worried that your system is going to be compromised. You are worried that people are going to have and acquire information about you and that they're going to utilize that information as they see fit. Which brings me to my final topic about the information that you're worried that they're collecting. Stop worrying about that information. And the reason why I say that is because of a very, very obvious fact. There's nothing more elusive than an obvious fact. And that obvious fact is you give out more information about what you are doing than any other program could capture. I'm not joking. You give out more personal stuff about yourself than anybody. You, me, anybody online, whether it be social media, whether we're live streaming, we give out and share more information about ourselves than any computer program, any virus, any malware or spyware program could ever collect on us without our consent. That's why this fear is completely moot and totally pointless. It really is. If you were to take a picture with your camera phone and you did not give away or you did not shut down GPS actions or anything like that, you can easily just be like, oh, that person is here. This is something that happened during the earlier days of Twitter. You know, when it wasn't shitty or owned by that bullshit guy who's bullshitting people on a regular basis. Yeah, you had an option in which you could turn on GPS. And what it would do, it'd be like, oh, here's the location data. This is where this came from. Here's where you are. And it gave your actual information as to where you actively were when you made the post. There are people who will be like, I'm going on vacation, so, you know, my house is going to be unavailable. I'm going to be gone for a little bit. I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. They had their location information turned on. So when they made that post, they were like, oh, you're here. You're not there. This is where you get the post from, so this is where you must live. I'll just wait until you announce when you go on vacation. And then they announce to go on vacation, come back from that vacation, and it's like, holy fuck, I got robbed. We give out more personal information about ourselves than could ever be collected by anybody, malicious actors or legitimate ones, even governments. We do an excellent job of sharing more about ourselves than any program could ever collect or capture, publicly, privately, secretly, or out in the open. That's why this whole fear about anti-cheats giving you the business and just fucking you in the ass is a complete waste of time. The whole purpose of an anti-cheat is to stop a cheater from cheating, or to make it as hard as possible. Again, nothing is 100% secure. But this idea that anti-cheats are stealing your data, that they're watching you, that they're monitoring you, I can tell you right now, developers don't give a shit who you are. The only thing that they care about when it comes to making their game or using their program is, are you doing it legitimately? If you're doing it legitimately, they don't care. Have fun, enjoy. But if you are cheating in a game that they are busting their ass to make and give to the masses, fuck you and the horse you rode in on, you're getting banned. People who cheat are the only ones who fear about anti-cheats. If you don't cheat, if you have no desire to cheat, if you're just having fun, you just want to enjoy yourself, do that. Keep on doing that. You have nothing to worry about. Also, don't go to malicious sites and download weird-ass software that you don't recognize. That's how spyware and malware gets on your system. Kernel-based drivers have nothing to do with that. With that said, I thank you for watching this video. It was a long one, but a good one. At first, I thought it was going to take about an hour to do all this, but no. Less than 40 minutes works for me. Feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more videos. And remember to click the little bell icon at the end. I think that's fantastic because I know I'm going to be uploading more videos and stuff. I'm going to be talking about more topics. And of course, you can always catch me on the Midnight Ride over on Twitch at twitch.tv/GodOfKnockers. All the links to everything that I am at is located at beacons.ai/GodOfKnockers. So take care. You guys be amazing. You be awesome. And don't worry about anti-cheats. It's okay. Play your fucking games. It's cool. Enjoy. Have fun. Laters.